one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, June 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 15. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa police investigating a shooting incident in the east end of Alta Vista neighborhood. This morning, officers were called to reports of shots fired just before 5 o'clock this morning. Investigators on the scene on Halifax Street, that is off Walkley in Elmvale Acres. Stay with City News for the latest on this developing story. Ontario has now moved into step one of its reopening plan, but Ottawa's top doctor calling on people to proceed with caution. The new restrictions allowed patios to open at midnight. Some bars in the capital did open then and serve for a couple of hours. Non-essential retail can also open up this morning at 15% capacity at a time. Up to 10 people can also gather outdoors, including for things like fitness classes. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches feels current guidelines such as wearing a mask and keeping 2 meters apart from others is still needed, but tells City News her thoughts on the reopening.
I think it's a great way to start with lower risk activities being those outdoor activities.
Despite restrictions allowing for up to 10 people to gather outdoors, she feels less is better and measures still need to be followed until more vaccines get into arms.
Things should get better and better over the course of the summer and be able to enjoy more and more activities.
With patios now allowed to open, Mayor Jim Watson is calling on Ottawans to show kindness towards staff and tip well to help support those who have been out of a job for months. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any showers won't last long. Generally mainly cloudy today. May get some sunshine, especially as we work toward the latter part of the day. The high 25, 12 for the low, partly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, looking pretty good for the most part. Sun and cloud 27 tomorrow. Mainly cloudy Sunday, 26. For today, the high, 25.
And right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees. It's 15 in Smiths Falls. 3 people seriously injured in a collision on the 417. It was shortly before 9:30 in the morning yesterday. Emergency crews responded to a 2-vehicle high-speed crash in the eastbound lanes near Highway 7. Ottawa Paramedic Service says 3 were assessed on the scene and taken to the local emergency room in serious but stable condition. Both vehicles were damaged in the crash, one ending up in a ditch. City News time at 9:02. The Queensway Carleton Hospital offering cold, hard cash. They're trying to entice enough registered nurses to fill the entire roster at the emergency room. The hospital says on Twitter you could be eligible for a signing bonus by joining their team as high as $10,000. In a Twitter message, the hospital also points out they have parking on site. The hospital says they're offering permanent and temporary positions. Our Prime Minister is the only leader at the G7 summit who has yet to pledge exactly how many COVID vaccine doses the country will donate to poorer countries. United Kingdom says leaders are expected to agree to give other parts of the world access to 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines through donations and funding. Trudeau is set to meet with the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson today. Also at the G7, Queen Elizabeth and Joe Biden will meet face-to-face, like they did nearly 40 years ago.
The president has a big challenge to make an impression as he will be the 13th acting US president to meet with the Queen. Whilst Biden has previously met the 95-year-old monarch in 1982 when he was a US senator, this will be the first time he meets her as president. Before the official meeting at Windsor Castle, the G7 leaders are to attend a reception with the Queen and other members of the royal family. The Queen has met every American president since Dwight Eisenhower during her nearly 70-year reign, except for Lyndon Johnson, who didn't visit Britain while he was in office. Karen Chamas, London.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. Lotto Max Day. Biggest lottery draw in the history of Canada is tonight. Your chances of winning it all, $70 million jackpot, 1 in 33 million. 1 in 33 million. I just happened to Google this morning odds of, and it took me to an article listing the odds of various random events happening to someone. Odds of being struck by lightning in a year. 1 in 1.2 million. Okay. Odds of a pregnancy resulting in twins. 1 in 250. I thought it'd be a little higher than that. Odds of being attacked by a shark. 1 in 7 million. And the odds of finding a 4-leaf clover. 1 in 10,000. Again, odds of winning the Lotto Max $70 million jackpot tonight. 1 in 33 million. And yet I bought a ticket. And that's why they call the lottery a tax on the stupid. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Great Friday fare on the way. Bourque is back from Bourque Newswatch. Pierre Bourque will go over a week's worth of headlines. Sylvain Lauzon is coming on the program a little more than a half an hour from now. He is the president of the Calypso Waterpark. Now, they're not open yet out near Limoges there. But they're getting ready to open. Mr. Lauzon was on the program, well, about a year ago, and he was not a happy man because his business was closed. And, you know, the hot weather hits, and they do a boom in business at Calypso. But his time will soon arrive. We'll ask what it's been like for him over the last year and what going to the Calypso Waterpark is going to look like this season. The G7, as you heard with Andrew, underway in the UK. Prime Minister Trudeau is there. We'll get into what the goals are for Canada for this summit. Professor Elliot Tepper is going to join us. You hear him every week on the Mark Sutcliffe Show. He's Carleton University International Affairs professor. He was actually one of my professors at Carleton University. And I didn't do very well. But nevertheless, he's going to give us kind of a G7 primer. They are down to the Final Four in the National Hockey League playoffs, and look, the Habs are still there. Who would have thought, eh? There are a few former Ottawa Senators that are doing really well for other teams in the playoffs. So we'll talk to Steve Warne. He joins us every Friday. Steve is doing the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project, and it's been a heck of a week in Ontario politics, hasn't it? My goodness gracious. So it should be quite a discussion. I don't know if you could even call it a discussion. Ferrets in a cage comes to mind. Probably more likely. When we do our MPP panel, we call it Queen's Park Week in Review. We do that at 11:30. But I would imagine, I'll just say, notwithstanding clause, discuss, and we'll be on our way. Now, Queen's Park is not in session today, as far as I can tell. Could be in session tomorrow, though, by the sounds of things. A rare weekend sitting. Also, Premier Ford can use his majority to invoke the notwithstanding clause for the first time in the history of the province of Ontario. And yeah, we talked a lot about that yesterday. The Premier's getting a lot of flack for that in the editorial pages of the print media this morning. Very critical editorials in both the Globe and Mail and the Toronto Star. We can get back into that issue again this morning if you want. I'm down for it. Ford's power move on the unions. The Working Families Coalition, given their history of multi-million-dollar ad campaigns, all to demonize conservatives and help get their liberal buddies elected. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it is an overreach by Premier Ford to use the notwithstanding clause. I'll leave that up to you to determine come voting time. But look, I thought, hasn't the recent history in Canadian politics, when it comes to political campaigns, political fundraising, hasn't one of the long-standing goals, especially for people on the left, hasn't one of the long-standing goals been to get big money out of our politics, to get the big money players out of the business of financing the aspirations of politicians and political parties? And in this province, let's face it, the truth is the organizations that have been spending the most money by far have been unions. Like I said this morning in my commentary on City News and Shea 106, I find some of the criticism from the lefties ridiculous. It's as though they really do think it's okay if unions are allowed to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. Remember 2014, $8.7 million in 30 days on attack ads to demonize conservatives and try to buy the election for the Liberals. Let's turn this around. Okay, let's look at this another way. And these are just a couple of examples that popped into my head this morning. They have plucked out of thin air by me. Let's say, because evangelical churches in Ontario are known to be very politically active. This is no secret. And they're well financed. Okay, they have a lot of money in the bank. What if they formed a political action committee? Ontarians for a Moral Society or something like that. And they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on ads to try and convince voters to only vote for politicians that are pro-life. Yeah. That'd be cool. Because it sounds like some of my friends on the left would actually be okay with that, given what I'm hearing. What if the Weston family took some of the $12 million they got from the government for new refrigerators and instead turned around and formed a political action group with some of that money and spent $12 million fighting against increases to the minimum wage for their workers at Loblaws? Would my lefty friends be okay with something like that? I guess so. Since it sounds to me like a lot of you are all in favor of letting unions spend whatever dues they can collect from their members. As long as the money goes to beating up Doug Ford, I guess it's okay. Anyway, we can get into all of this during the Talkback Hour. Today's Friday, so it's the Friday free-for-all. During the Talkback Hour, maybe that's something you might want to talk about. Maybe not. If not, that's okay. Because during the Friday free-for-all, it's wide open. You can bring up any topic you want to bring up. We usually try to stick to what's in the news, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Maybe it's in the news, maybe it's not in the news, and you think it should be in the news. Whatever it is, just give me a call. We'll roll with it. 750-1310 is our call-in line after the 10 o'clock news. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Email the Rob Snow Show, ottawa.citynews.ca. There's no shortage of news, right, all week. Globe and Mail has a story this morning. Canada is the only G7 country that has yet to commit to donating any vaccines to poor countries. Doesn't that make you proud to be Canadian? Canada is back, baby. Canada's back.
I have a simple message for you. On behalf of 35 million Canadians, we're back.
We're back. We're back. And, this is curious. We have 1.6 million Canadians unemployed. We have a national unemployment rate that's north of 8%, and there has been story after story in the news this week. Business owners can't get people to work. People just don't want to go back to work because the Trudeau government is basically paying them to stay home. Has anyone heard tell of this? Is this true that this is happening? Trying to find workers all but impossible. Why would you work, I guess, if you can stay at home and make as much money? Thanks to Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Trudeau paying people to stay at home. And the reopening. This is day one of the latest version of Doug Ford's grand reopening of Ontario. Any big plans? Let me know. I'm here till noon on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Part of the reason I got back into this is because I am creative, and I also wanted to kind of have a fun flair, 50s vibe. All of the boxes are kind of fun names. The colors are fun. The logo is fun. And it's not just the package that I want to bring joy to people's lives. It's also the feeling that they get when they receive it, to know that there's someone that thinks of them and they're missing them, and showing that they care when they can't be there. The smallest of the subscription boxes is the red box, the classical box. So you would get 5 to 7 items from the variety of categories. Those do change quarterly. However, with items that are more popular, we'll bring them back as people ask for them, or you could get them as an add-on option. And then those items will be included in the Jazzy box, the same items from the first, although they'll be in a larger size, more quantity, as well as a couple extra items. And then in the largest box, the Doo-Wop Deluxe, which is our most popular, that is a comprehensive offering of all of the other 2 boxes, plus additional. So for example, if you were to get a certain item in the smallest of the boxes, that item would still be offered in the large, but in a bigger size. So you're getting everything bigger, plus an extra few items. The first thing is I look for Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. That is something I'm very proud of. I make sure that the products are safe, that they fit into the packages that we offer, obviously. They have to be the proper size and weight. I have approximately 300 items that we have so far that we can order that basically help make people's lives easier. There's snacks, there's self-care items, there's entertainment, a little bit of everything. And basically I try it and test it, and if it's duly approved, then I include it in our packages. So some of the categories that we have is we offer treats, which is of course everyone likes treats, no matter how old you are. So we have things like nuts, chocolates, different types of snacks, maybe a handmade piece of jewelry. We also include pieces of jewelry as well, occasionally. We also have our pamper items. So your pamper items would include things like your bath soaks, your specialty lotions, things like that. 2 other categories we offer are leisure. Leisure would include things such as puzzles, adult coloring books, paint by numbers, crosswords, word find, Sudoku, if that's how you say it. And we also have items for self-care and health. So masks, sanitizers, sanitizing wipes. They're all natural, non-drying, made with natural ingredients. So they're very good for everyone, especially in this time that we're dealing with.
Them and 1310 AM.
Lowell Green is away this week. Nothing serious. He'll be back with us next week. Wow, what a week in the news business. Another busy one here on the Rob Snow Show. And locally, one of the big news stories this week was about the city's fleet of OC Transpo buses. They're going electric because of an agreement, a big announcement between the city and the federal government's so-called infrastructure bank. So this plan includes bringing into service 450 battery electric buses by the year 2027, and then to have the balance of the fleet, the total fleet, which is more than 900 buses, all converted to electric by the year 2036. But a key thing here, and I don't know if this came across in the news reporting this week, this is being touted as a $400 million investment by the Canada Infrastructure Bank, when in fact what it really is a loan. The city of Ottawa is borrowing money from the so-called Infrastructure Bank. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson confirmed that with me on the Rob Snow Show this week.
Canada actually has become a world leader in electric buses. You know, the plant's Flyer Force in Winnipeg. There's another company in Quebec, another one in British Columbia. So we're actually doing very well with the technology. And these products now are not just simply cars. They're high-tech vehicles. And this will reduce significantly, obviously, our greenhouse gases. Cars are one of the biggest emitters of vehicles are one of the biggest emitters. And it's going to be staged in. By 2023, we'll have 74. By 2027, 450 buses. And by 2036, the full fleet will be converted to electric, which will make Ottawa I believe the first city in Canada to have 100%.
I guess what I want to get at, because in the talking points that were released yesterday, it says it's a loan, $400 million loan, to cover higher upfront capital costs of electric buses compared to diesel buses.
Right.
So this $400 million, does the city have to pay that back to the infrastructure bank?
Well, we also are eligible for a grant from the federal government, as is every other city. They made a major announcement about that. And this is to pay for the cost differential between a diesel bus, which is about $620,000, versus an electric bus, which is about $1.1 million. So it's a very good deal for the city of Ottawa and for our passengers that we end up getting a low-interest rate from the Infrastructure Bank of Canada. And those costs are covered by a combination of what we would be paying for a bus in any event, plus the grant from Infrastructure.
I understand
Canada.
it, but it is a loan of $400 million, right? It's a loan of $400 million?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted to, that's my primary point, okay?
Yeah, and look, there'll always be debate on whether this is a good investment. I think, anyone who's been stuck behind one of those old diesel buses, you see firsthand the spew of dirty fuel coming out the top of the bus. We can do better in a modern, caring society like we have here in Ottawa.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson on the Rob Snow Show earlier this week. This deal for transitioning the bus fleet to electric, it still needs to be approved by the Transit Commission and then the full City Council. They're going to vote on that in the middle of the month. June 16th at Transit Commission, and then on the 23rd at the full City Council. Now, another big news story this week was Ontario Premier Doug Ford invoking the notwithstanding clause. The Premier recalled the legislature this week with plans to invoke the notwithstanding clause in the charter because he wants to reinstate spending limits placed on special interest groups in the lead up to the next election and then during the election campaign. The Ford government's revised spending limits were ruled unconstitutional by an Ontario judge this week. It's very controversial. Duff Conacher, the co-founder of Democracy Watch, told me this week that he thinks it's a terrible move by Doug Ford invoking the notwithstanding clause.
It's undemocratic, unreasonable, and dictatorial, and likely illegal.
Okay, why do you say that?
Well, undemocratic because the democratic thing to do to establish reasonable democratic limits on third-party spending is to work with all parties and have an independent commission study what a reasonable democratic limit is. And instead, he's moving forward with using the notwithstanding clause, just going to impose it and defy a court ruling that the limits that he arbitrarily set with Bill 254 are unconstitutional. And there's a democratic, reasonable way to proceed on this. Limits are needed.
So you're not opposed to limits?
No, everyone testified, including all the unions, that this all seems to be aimed at. Every representative from the unions testified that limits are needed. They just have to be reasonable and democratic, and not just arbitrarily picked out of the air, which is what he did. The limit was $600,000 could be spent by any third-party interest group or individual in the 6 months before an election. And he said now the limit's going to apply, same dollar amount, about $600,000, but for the 12 months before an election, and it'll apply to any ad you do about anything, even if it's not related to the election, about any bill or government decision or action. And the courts across the country have ruled that that's illegal. That's a too restrictive rule on the right of freedom of expression. So everyone said the limits are legal and needed, but have to be set in a reasonable democratic way, not an arbitrary way. And that's what he's done. And now he's arbitrarily using the notwithstanding clause in a dictatorial way to say, no, I'm right, everyone else is wrong, including the courts. And I get to choose whatever the number is myself, like a dictator would.
Again, that's Duff Conacher, Democracy Watch. The bid to invoke the notwithstanding clause at the legislature, it hasn't passed yet, and that might not happen until sometime Sunday or maybe even Monday. Now, also this week, there was an explosive story from the New York City news outlet ProPublica. It somehow managed to obtain this vast trove of data from the Internal Revenue Service in the United States, the IRS, the tax returns of thousands of the wealthiest people in the United States, revealing effectively how little the very wealthy, the billionaire class, how little they pay in income tax. For example, there were years when the wealthiest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and the second wealthiest person in the world, the founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, there were years when they paid no income tax at all. We dug into this story with ProPublica's Paul Keel, and he told us it's all about the difference between wealth and income.
You know, wages are the thing that is actually the easiest to tax for the government, the most comprehensively taxed. We not only have income taxes, we have taxes for, you know, our federal programs like Social Security and Medicare that you pay on top of your income taxes. So an average person will see a lot of tax on their wages. And, you know, the examples we give in the piece are someone earning around $70,000 a year might, you know, pay something like 14%. That's kind of what they look down at their paycheck. That's what's coming out. Whereas, you know, for if you look just at income, the typical income tax for this group, we did the top 25 over 5 years, and their average was 16. It's around the same. You know, we give examples of you know, average people who might pay more, a lot more than that, people who are earning like, you know, $50,000 a year. But then if you go up the income scale, if you're someone who has a big salary here in the U.S., you're probably paying quite a lot of taxes because that's very easy to tax. So, you know, a CEO like Jeff Bezos, he gets paid $80,000 a year. There are CEOs who take literally like $1 in salary. And again, that's framed as them believing in the company, but it also happens to be a way that you can much more efficiently avoid tax.
In fact, Jeff Bezos, wealthiest man in the world, founder of Amazon, actually reported a negative income one year and then claimed a tax credit for his children. Is that right?
Yeah, so the way the tax system works is it looks at how much income you had, and that year he had some investment losses. We don't really say what those are, but it's not related to Amazon, just side investments. Yeah. He ended up on the negative side of the balance sheet. So the tax system says, okay, you had no income, so now you qualify for these things that are designed for people who don't have income or have low income, and so one of them is a little extra tax credit for people who have children.
That's journalist Paul Keel from ProPublica. He joined us from New York City this week. The revelations in that report from ProPublica are actually now the subject of an FBI investigation because taxpayer information in the United States is supposed to be confidential, and there are potential criminal penalties if an IRS employee, for example, released such information. So, once again, very busy week in the news business, and it's not done yet. We'll look back at more of it with Pierre Bourque coming up next from Bourque Newswatch. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
101 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, June 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 18 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 17. And here's what's making news this hour. You could be facing lineups again at non-essential stores today. They are allowed to reopen, but only at 15% capacity. Now, patios also allowed to open as of 12:01 this morning. And with some of them choosing to open and serve customers until 2 o'clock this morning. Patios are expected to be busy today and tomorrow with COVID restrictions like distancing still in place, but weather cooperating. Now, if you are looking for a patio, they could be even more popular starting this weekend. Euro 2020 soccer tournament finally kicks off a year late. Italy and Turkey in the first match this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will meet with his British Prime Minister counterpart Boris Johnson on the first day of the G7 summit in England. The pair stood elbow to elbow, Johnson flashing a thumbs up before their meeting began. UK expecting leaders to agree to give poorer countries access to 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine through donations and funding. A Canadian government official speaking on the condition of anonymity says this country is going to pledge 100 million of those doses. Ottawa police investigating a shooting incident on Halifax Street in Elmville Acres this morning. It was just before 5 o'clock. Police were called to that short street off Walkley. An investigation is now underway. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bourque is back. Pierre Bourque from Bourque Newswatch. Good morning.
Rob, good morning. Good morning to you. I'm betwixt and between, and I got to tell you, I'm probably not the only one. Barely a moment before your producer David called me to set up our conversation here, there was a phone call inbound, and I didn't recognize it, but I subsequently realized it was a pharmacy that I'd been dealing with trying to get my second COVID shot.
Ooh,
so then my choice was, do I answer it or do I wait for Rob Snow? So I am here talking with you.
Decisions.
You
didn't defer, did you? You deferred the dose?
I'm going to have to call him back after we're done here.
All right.
The pharmacy is probably going, where the heck is Pierre? And they're listening to us on the radio.
So listen, I was thinking this morning because there's a really, you hate to see institutions close, and one has, but there's a really nice write-up from Bruce Deitchman in the paper today about MacArthur Lanes, 60 years. And I was thinking, I remember you were a city councillor for Lowertown. I don't know, was it called Lowertown? Or what was it called? Rideau, Bytown, Lowertown. And I asked you if that was your ward, and you said no, and it kind of hit me. Well, it was pre-amalgamation, so Vanier may have had its own city council and stuff back then, right? So
that was the city of Vanier, and they did have a mayor. They had their own police chief.
Yes, own police force and everything.
But I was a city councillor for. It was called by Rideau, and that was the name of it. Had the longest river waterfront anywhere in the city, but that included Lowertown, Manor Park, New Edinburgh, the Byward Market, of course, but not Vanier. And look, you talk about MacArthur. I went there as a kid. I went there as a young adult. I went there more recently, but not recently, with Mike Copeland when he was the head.
No way, really? You and Mike Copeland went bowling?
Oh my God, Mike's a very good bowler, and he at the time he was the head of Corel, and you'd figure he need once in a that's a 24/7 job. He had Word Perfect, which was a global success. I think they sold 50 million copies of that stuff, and he was also working to. Anyways, he was busy. Corel Draw is what I'm thinking about, but he was involved in buying Word Perfect in Utah. But he you got to blow off steam once in a while, and he says, "Hey, let's go bowling." So off we went to MacArthur Lanes. We did that a couple of times, and it was great fun. Just a great facility, and it's an end of an era. And it's too bad. Look, I haven't been in 20 years. I'm part of the problem in that sense, but it's a heck of a piece of property. And if you owned that and you're thinking, all right, it's time to cash in, you're going to see a high-rise go there. It's a great location.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of intensification, infill, gentrification happening all along there, all along the Vanier Parkway around that area. So, yeah. I was trying to think the last time I went to MacArthur Lanes, it's probably 7 or 8 years, something like that. But I've been there many times. And the article in the paper today says it will not affect, in case people are worried, does not affect Louis Pizza at all.
One of the great institutions. I love Colonnade Pizza, but Louis
I do like Colonnade is probably my favorite, as I've said a few times. But not only I like Louis Pizza, but I also like going into Louis and having a meal. I mean, it's just kind of got that old-fashioned diner experience to it, really good food, good pies, everything, it's just, everything is good there. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Love good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, MacArthur Lanes. According to the write-up in the newspaper, like Rocket Richard was there, for crying out loud,
it would draw people, and it had the reputation. And now that it's closing or closed, I don't know if they've actually physically closed.
It's closed. Yeah.
I took my son or my daughter when they were much younger to a birthday party at some bowling lanes on Marival Road, just to the south of Hunt Club on the west side. I don't know if that still exists, and if so, it may be the last bowling lanes in the city.
Yeah. So let's go on to some of the news this week. At Bourque.com this week is where I first saw the story about ProPublica getting its hands on the tax returns, the tax records from the IRS of the wealthiest people in the United States, the top 25 billionaires in the United States. What do you take away from that story? We had the ProPublica reporter on yesterday from New York.
Well, maybe a couple of things. First of all, amazing they got the information. There's a story still untold. How did they get it? And when they got that treasure trove, as journalists, as reporters, as people trying to bring forward issues of societal contention, you probably were tickling yourself at your good fortune. But there's a story, and so that was, to me, very interesting. The other part of it is clearly these larger than life people who've created corporate behemoths, and in so doing, creating public entities that people invest in, and they've seen their personal wealth, skyrocket to levels previously unforeseen. And you can say, all right, they're not paying income tax, but the flip of that is they've created hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs. They've created entities that have gone on to change society. So something worked. The flip of it is they didn't get income tax paid in, and that looks strange, right?
That's one way to look at it. Look at the job creation just from Amazon. I mean, look at the way, for example, at our city council meeting this week, one of the big contentious issues was another warehouse, for the Barhaven area this time. Like that, the whole warehouse and logistics business in Ottawa is probably, that's one of the great untold stories, is how booming that business is. They can't slap up distribution centers fast enough right now in the city.
Yeah, and I drove my son. My son is a university student, and he's got a summer job working at Tanger Outlet here in the West End. And I drove down the end of the street next to Cabela's, and Rob's probably been in that area. But there's a brand new UPS. There's a brand new huge UPS facility there. I'd never seen it before.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite a thing. And all to say that you want people to pay their fair share, but in terms of societal impact, it's hard to say that Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos have not had a positive impact on society in terms of jobs, in terms of opportunity creation, and in terms of change. I mean, my gosh, Amazon in the East End, look at the giant facility there. Look at what SpaceX has done. Look at the people driving around town here in Teslas. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new Tesla out now, or unveiled, the Plaid. I'm not sure. Model S Plaid. I'm not sure what the big difference is between the Model S and the Model S Plaid. Maybe it comes in plaid.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Jeep Wagoneer. You'd figure there's some wood on the side, but it's actually fiberglass.
Okay. What else did I have? Do you play the lottery?
Tonight I will.
You will? Okay, yeah.
Today I'm all in, and I know you said earlier today, Rob, that you're in. And
I'm in, yeah, sure.
And I wish you bad fortune. I hope that
I'll split it with
nowhere
you.
near that big one.
Maybe we can, look, I'm even, they have something like 50 of the $1 million prizes up for grabs. I don't need the full jackpot. Get, a cool million. I'm cool with that, So.
What a great story, though. It's just fun. It's a summertime story, and there'll be a lot of people betting on it, and it'll, for a few bucks, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So help me, if somebody wins, then it comes out. Yeah, it's the first time I ever played the lottery. And you know what? I think I will go back to work on Monday.
Would you, Rob?
No, not a chance. No way. No way. No, that you would never hear from me again. I would try and disappear. That's one of the big things now. In fact, is when people win the lottery, they want the right to claim their jackpot anonymously, right? They don't want to have to do the big OLG news conference and do the photo op with the giant novelty check, because then they're inundated by scam artists and long lost uncles and aunts and everything else. So,
yeah, it's amazing how many distant relatives would love you to build them a pool for their backyards.
Yeah, I just hope it goes to somebody who really needs it. That's that's all.
Who doesn't need 70 million?
70 million. What do you make of the story, Pierre? We have, as I mentioned in my opening, we have the unemployment rate is 8% across the country, even a little bit more than that now. But we have story after story, and there are stories in the American media to this effect as well. Businesses are suffering from a labor shortage. People don't want to work because they're basically being paid to stay home. What do you think about that?
Well, look, the personal experience, and I'll go back to my son, who I mentioned is working at Tanger. When he started to look for a job, he applied at a number of places and immediately got 3 job offers. Immediately.
Wow.
It was like they didn't blink. Yeah, we need you. And one was in a restaurant, one was at a retail, and one was in a sorting facility. And he's in retail because he has a business mind, and he's studying business at university. So that's where he went. But 3 of them immediately, and that tells you something. My daughter, who's 2 years younger, she applied, and she was immediately accepted at 2 different places. So, there are jobs galore in our own backyard here, and all it takes is people that want to do it. It's more than just the dollar that you get at the end of your week or your pay cycle. It's the experience for a young person who wants to be involved, who wants to grow, personally grow, who wants to understand themselves and their place in society. What a fantastic opportunity to get out there and do something.
Now, look, there might be some news today from Mr. Trudeau out of this G7 conference, but so far nothing. And there are multiple news reports about it now highlighting the fact that Canada is the only G7 country that hasn't committed to donating vaccines to the developing world. Yesterday, President Biden announced the United States government is buying 500 million Pfizer doses, and they're going to be donated to the 100 poorest countries in the world. That's what Biden is doing. What do you think about Trudeau's lack of a commitment on that front?
Well, first of all, the United States is a trading nation, and they need good health in their trading partners around the world, right? And they export a ton of stuff, and they buy a lot of stuff. So it makes economic sense, but also it's a gesture of goodwill that you can't negate. Here in Canada, I don't know, if we had something to announce, we should have announced it before, or we should have assumed that we would be, put in the corner there and with the dunce cap on and say, what are you guys doing about it? But I go back to my first comments. I'm still looking for my second shot. I'm not alone. There's a ton of people here looking for their second shots. Maybe there's still a ton of people looking for their first shots.
Right.
And the whole from day one, to me, anyways, from day one, the government of Canada has bungled the vaccine program completely from day one. And so whatever they announced today, I think, is a sideshow. It's really more to kind of Band-Aid over the bad press they're getting.
Yeah. Do you watch soccer at all?
I try not to.
No, you try not to. Okay. Yeah, I know there are a lot of people Andrew Boyle, our news anchor, he's revved up and ready to go for this Euro. It's Euro 2020, even though it's 2021. But I just can't get into it. It's not my thing.
I have difficulty. I've got people following me on Twitter who are soccer players. And it's kind of fun to just, do some direct messaging with them about their passion. I love the passion. Look, Rob, if anybody who's listening to us has been to Europe, when soccer is on, my God, soccer takes over the city, right? Mm-hmm. I've been in Dublin when Dublin was playing an English team, and it was like you've never seen the kind of energy and passion and so forth. It's just fascinating. I just personally can't get in the game, but I certainly love the passion, and I love the history of the sport. It's been around forever. It's a sport that's played everywhere in the world. My kids played it when they were in school. Africans play it in the smallest of villages in the most remote locations with things that don't even resemble actual balls. But soccer is part of life.
Okay. Always great to hear from you. Enjoy the grand reopening weekend.
I wish you some good fishing this weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. See how that goes. Talk to you next week.
All right, Rob. Good
it's
luck
a date.
Tonight.
Thanks.
All right. Cheers.
Pierre Bourque, Bourque Newswatch. We'll be right back. Sylvain Lauzon will join us. The owner of Calypso, Waterpark, getting ready for the grand opening. First week of July. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's a great pleasure to welcome back to City News and the Rob Snow Show Sylvain Lauzon, the president of Calypso Waterpark and Village Vacances Valcartier. Good morning, Mr. Lauzon.
Good morning.
Very nice to hear from you. You must be excited now.
Excited, relieved, happy, ready to go.
I bet. When do you think you're going to open?
Well, right now, as you mentioned earlier, we're moving to step one. So technically, 21 days after today, we could technically reopen our park. So we'll bring us first week of July.
Yeah, July 5th. You're aiming for July 5th, right? Fingers crossed.
That's the magic date we're looking at right now. Yes.
Okay. What are you doing between now and then to get ready?
Well, I mean, the park is looking good right now. We fast track everything to get open. We hired the staff. It's ready to go right now. So it's right now. Of course, it's training. It's reinforcing the different protocol that we put in place to be ready to welcome the families in early July. Like I mentioned earlier, last year we had put in place a very comprehensive reopening plan, and it was accepted by the health units. And so we're confident it's going to be fun, safe outing this upcoming summer.
I'm just a bit unclear. What municipality is Calypso in?
Technically, we're in the Nation municipality, which is right before Castleman. So we're in between Lars and Castleman.
Okay. So you're under what public health unit then?
Eastern Ontario Health Unit.
Okay, Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Yeah, just so I know. And how would you describe the dialogue between you and public health officials? How's that?
I'll tell you the truth, it was very, very good.
Good.
Dr. Paul Remuliotis, which he's the CEO of the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. He's a very reasonable guy. We worked with him for a number of years. He trusts us. We trust him. It's good. With the plan that I mentioned there, we worked with him and his team all along. And even last year, we were hoping to get open last year, and he was on our site, and we showed him and his team what we put in place, and he was happy with what he saw. And so this year was basically same thing as last year. He's happy with the plan we put in place, and we're confident that it's going to be a good one.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it was about a year ago I was talking to you, and it sounded at that time it was the provincial authorities to put the kibosh on it, right, Mr. Lauzon?
Yes, it was a provincial decision. I understand, and we were supportive of that. We're team players, we're good corporate citizens, and of course, there's people from Eastern Ontario, of course, and the situation in Eastern Ontario was X, but the rest of Ontario was another situation, and we understand that, and it's just like everyone else. No Waterpark in Ontario could reopen last year, and we accepted the decision, but this year it's another story. Almost no cases now. We're over the hump, I think, and we're very excited about what's coming next few weeks.
Okay. So how will the experience be different, say, this July compared to the last July that you were opened for your customers?
Yes. Well, basically with the plan put in place, distancing is a big thing.
Oh, I think we've lost Mr. Lauzon. Let's try and get him back. And while we do that, let me tell you what's coming up on the program just while we try and reconnect with Sylvain Lauzon, who's the president of Calypso Waterpark and Village Vacances Valcartier. 11 o'clock, it's Elliot Tepper from Carleton University here, Professor Tepper, every week during the Mark Sutcliffe Show. We've kind of stolen him for this week from Mark. I think he was on with Mark earlier in the week, and so he's going to do double duty with us. And we're going to talk about the G7 meeting that's underway right now in the UK, and what some of the goals are for Canada coming out of this. What some of the big issues are. It's a big meeting for President Biden as well. Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project. We're going to talk about the National Hockey League playoffs. And Queen's Park Week in Review is going to be a big one because of everything that's been happening at the Ontario legislature in the last couple of days. I mean, the Ontario legislature was not even supposed to sit this week, but was recalled and was back in action around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, all because of this court case that and court ruling that tossed out the election spending restrictions on third parties, on the special interest groups. And now we have the Ontario PC government vowing to invoke the notwithstanding clause in order to basically reimpose those spending limits. So we'll get into all of that with our MPPs when they join us right after the 11:30 news. Okay, we have reconnected with Mr. Lauzon. So, thank you again, Mr. Lauzon. It's the way it is with cell phones sometimes. No problem, I understand. You were talking about physical distancing is going to be a big thing. What for clients of Calypso? What else? When it comes to mask wearing, for example, how does that work at a water park?
Well, right now in the protocol, our guests are going to have to wear a mask at all times, except, of course, when they're in the ride itself and they're in the tube itself or in the water slide. But anywhere else, they're going to have to wear a mask. That's the protocol that was in place. And like I said, distancing in the queuing everywhere in the public areas. It's going to be a 2-meter minimum everywhere. So there's signage, there's markers, there's all kind of different things there to make sure that people will respect the 2-meter distancing everywhere in the park. But it's a very large site. You know, our site, of course, it's an outdoor water park, spread over 100 acres, so there's plenty of space, and of course, it's going to be reduced capacity.
And in percentage terms, how much has it been reduced? Do they say?
It's in the neighborhood of 25%, around 25% of our capacity. So it's 25% on such a large site. We're very, very confident that's going to be going to meet all the criteria required as far as distancing goes, and it's going to be very safe for our guests.
Okay, so you say you've hired your staff for the season?
Yes.
Yeah. How many? I'm curious.
Right now, typically we were in the neighborhood of 650. Right now, we think we could. We have over 500, and that's going to be enough for the summer. And we're very, very pleased, very happy. Most of our staff, of course, they're young university students, college students, and we called them back, the one we had hired last year, and most of them came back. So retention was really high, and we're very pleased with that. Very pleased with that.
You didn't have any problems finding people?
Of course, always it's always a little bit of a challenge, but most of our staff we hired last year came back, like I said, and we're very, very, very happy. It was we didn't know what to expect, but it turned out that they all want to come back. It's a fun for them, in the summer outside, working in this type of environment. It's certainly a fun thing for young workers.
Cool. So obviously you didn't make any money last summer. At 25% capacity, can you actually make money?
We'll
of course,
it's not going to be, for us, we're here for the long run, This is, of course, a difficult time for anyone, but we're a solid company. We own other businesses as well. Like you mentioned, we own another water park, a couple more water parks in Quebec City, one indoor, one outdoor. I don't know if you knew that. We own the Ice Hotel in Quebec City also. We have a hotel, we have a campground. So we have other businesses that we were able to, so in the mix there, it's all good. Like anyone, it's not easy, but like I said, I think we're over the hump. I think the future is going to be good. And, people after population after being home for such a long time, I hope and I think most young families here, they're going to be looking for a fun thing to do. They need a little bit of stress relief, and I think places like ours are certainly going to be a fun and safe place to be with their families.
Excellent. I'm so happy you're coming out the other end of this very challenging time, Mr. Lauzon. I thank you for your time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah. Sylvain Lauzon.
Great summer.
Yeah. You too, sir. Bye-bye. From Calypso Water Park, that's the president, Sylvain Lauzon. Talkback hour. Your hour. Anything goes. Wide open on topics. Every line available right now. It's yours. That's 750-1310. Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, June 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 18 degrees, 17 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa police investigating a shooting incident that happened early this morning in Alta Vista. Police were called to reports of shots fired just before 5 o'clock this morning. Investigators called to the scene on Halifax Street, that is off Walkley in Elmvale Acres at the east end of Alta Vista. City News Time 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any showers won't last long. Generally mainly cloudy today. May get some sunshine, especially as we work toward the latter part of the day. The high 25, 12 for the low, partly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, looking pretty good for the most part. Sun and cloud 27 tomorrow. Mainly cloudy Sunday, 26. For today, the high, 25.
And right now in Smiths Falls, 17 degrees. It's 18 in Ottawa. Well, we have the latest numbers from the province on COVID-19 infections. 574 cases, a bit of a climb today. 22 of those new cases are in Ottawa. There are 3 more in Renfrew County today, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. No new cases reported in Eastern Ontario. This comes from just under 29,000 tests that were completed. The positivity rate at 2% even. And there are 4 deaths reported in the province as well. Expect patios to be a little extra busy. People wanting to grab a pint this afternoon, especially around Little Italy. It's Game 1 of Euro 2020, a year late. Italy opens a tournament against Turkey this afternoon, that game at 3. Now, the province is now in step 1 of its reopening plan, and Ottawa's top doctor feels it is a great way to start things off, but asks people to proceed with caution. Things like patios, as mentioned, are open. Also, up to 10 people can gather outdoors now, including for fitness classes, and non-essential retail can reopen their doors, but at just 15% capacity. The world vaccine picture is starting to become a little clearer today at the G7. 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine are needed to help lower-income countries. Canada apparently is going to offer the same number as Britain. They announced this morning at least 100 million doses. The American President, Joe Biden, has pledged 500 million shots. France, Germany, and Japan have promised at least 30 million doses this year, while Italy says it will offer 15 million. The federal government is infusing some cash into the city to help stem overdose cases. Associate Minister of Finance Mona Fortier says $4.4 million will be provided to extend the Safe Supply Ottawa project for another couple of years.
With the additional funding, this project, led by Pathways to Recovery, can reach a broader group of people who use drugs by offering daily prescribed medication in more accessible and flexible ways.
Now, this will allow the group to expand and help an additional 450 people who are at risk of overdose. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
It's the Friday free-for-all. That's our favorite hour of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics. You come up with the topics. You give us a call. We roll with it. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. That is the call-in line. We usually take our cues from whatever is happening in the news, but it doesn't have to be in the news in order to be shared here on City News. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Nick, Richmond. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there, buddy. Counting down the hours, you know, it's Friday.
So the reason I'm calling is just a little bit of gripe about the OC Transpo and their loans, and you know, like we've got the LRT going in costing us billions of dollars, and then we have this new electrification of the buses, and you know, it's a loan, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, OC Transpo only is about 50% cost effective, meaning that it probably only rakes in about 50 cents for every dollar it spends. And we already know that it's one of the most expensive, you know, transit systems in North America, really. And so it's just, you know, how are we as a city going to pay for this? I mean, are we going to have to, increase the rates, increase municipal taxes again? I mean,
I think Nick, some good points you raised there. What bothered me about how this came across this week is I kept hearing this term investing. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is investing $400 million into electrifying the bus fleet in Ottawa. As though Catherine McKenna showed up with a big chunk of change, $400 million, and said, here's $400 million, go buy a bunch of electric buses. But then I don't think this was really clearly communicated that that's not what's happening. The city of Ottawa is borrowing $400 million that it will eventually have to pay back in order to electrify the fleet. Now, look, I get it that the whole world of motor vehicles is moving toward being electric. I get that. I'm not opposed to it, but this isn't some big pile of money that the federal government came along and said, here, Jim Watson, here's $400 million, go buy some electric buses. It's, no, we've agreed to lend you $400 million, which is something else entirely altogether. Okay? That was my problem with it, Nick. So.
That's my point too. All right, I just wanted to see what your take on it was, and I mean, I'm just worried about another increase on rates, and we all know that the public service workers are probably not heading back to downtown anytime soon.
Well, exactly. There's also what is the future of public transit post-pandemic? Are we going back to ridership the way ridership was before? I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Yeah, Ottawa's a big city. I mean, we're stretched out over 80 kilometers, and I mean, everyone's moving out from the downtown core. So unless they bring back something, maybe like an NHL hockey rink or something like that, I mean, they're going to have to find something big to attract people to actually travel into downtown Ottawa, since many of the public servants aren't going to be coming back, at all, really.
I mean, we've already spent more than $2 billion on the first phase of light rail, and more than $4 billion will be spent on the second phase of light rail. They're talking about some kind of tramway between Ottawa and Gatineau with yet another tunnel under Sussex. For who's going to be riding it? I don't know. And now, borrowing money to electrify the fleet. All of this at a time when the times are very uncertain, I think, for public transit, Nick. That's my only concern, okay? I'm not a dinosaur as opposed to electric vehicles or anything like that. But I share your concerns, and I thank you for your call this morning. You've got us off to a good start. A few phone lines available there on the Friday free-for-all talkback hour, 750-1310, 750-1310. See, that's how it works. Just pick a topic and just boot it around. South End, David. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes,
I want to jump on something that I've been on in the past, and that is the waste to energy. Now, I think it was about a week and a half ago, they were talking about a trial project in the GTA, I think Windsor and Rockland or something, and about which items are going to be in the blue boxes, and they listed a couple of the things. We're already putting more than that in the blue boxes already. We've had those darn things for over 20 years, and they've changed up which kinds of plastics can go in those things or not go in those things over and over and over again. You'd think they'd have figured it out by now.
Right. Okay. I totally missed that story. I'm not even familiar with the story.
Yeah,
that you're talking
they're
about.
having this trial project. It's going to start in about 2 or 3 years. I mean, don't they think we know already? Build an incinerator. They don't need to spend time and money on environmental studies. They know what kind of effluence, if any, and it's very little that comes out of those things. Lowell Green can tell you that they're found in downtown cities.
Oh, some of the most
Europe.
progressive countries in the world.
Yeah, there's one over in Mississauga. You don't know what it is unless somebody tells you.
Yeah.
So they're not going to pollute half the darned planet with those things.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of where's it going to go? Do we have enough space? And I guess for traffic, for the trucks going in and out, that's all that's needed.
And the thing is, Ottawa, Ottawa doesn't have to do something like that all on its own. It can be a regional approach to this. Ottawa can do it with the wider region of Eastern Ontario. Maybe we do it with Cornwall, Hawkesbury, or the Outaouais, or what have you.
Also, on top of that, when a lot of these people come in, they pay us to take their stuff and look after it, to babysit their garbage for them.
Yeah.
Now, they'll come from all over, and they'll pay us to take their stuff and turn it into energy, which is adding energy to the grid that we will own and we will get the benefit of.
Mm-hmm.
Build the darn thing. That's why we don't get anything done in this stupid city or this stupid province. They don't have enough common sense to say, let's get her done. Build the darn thing. Never mind waiting 3 years for another study to see what's allowed in garbage bins.
Okay, let's get her done.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Have a great weekend. Lynn in Canada. Good morning, Lynn. You're on City News.
Oh, hi, Rob. Good morning.
Hi there.
The two Michaels.
The two Michaels, yeah.
This has bothered me for maybe 900 days.
Yeah, more than that now, yeah.
I sort of play a game in my head. What would Trudeau or the Liberals do if it was somebody important to them that was in captivity?
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question.
Okay.
How long do you think Gerald Butts would spend in a Chinese prison?
I don't know. I don't know.
2 weeks?
Yeah, if that 2 weeks, 2 hours.
Yeah, and you can move the bar up and down. It could be Sophie.
Yeah, okay.
It could be Jody Wilson-Raybould. I mean, she'd be good for a year, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I don't think they'd be moving heaven and earth to get Jody Wilson-Raybould out of a Chinese prison.
Yeah, but if you're a friend to them and you're important.
Right.
Anyway, I just think it's
914 days for the two Michaels.
And if you see one of the Michaels, his wife being interviewed, just imagine if Trudeau would imagine that was his wife or his friend, maybe something would happen.
So how do you resolve an issue like that, though?
You put pressure on them.
Okay.
We're always just, well, not us.
Right.
Trudeau is always sort of sucking up and appeasing them in any way he can, and I think he values them.
Yeah, Mr. Trudeau's not very renowned for putting pressure on China.
No.
It's quite the opposite, if anything, right?
He values them.
Yeah.
It reminds me when he said how much he admired China and the way they do business.
Their basic dictatorship. He admired their basic dictatorship.
Yes. It reminds me of when you and your wife are walking around a house that you want to negotiate for, and one of you blabs how much they love the house, and they just have to have it. You know, you've lost all your negotiating power.
Right. Okay. All right.
That's it.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Yep. The two Michaels, 914 days in a Chinese prison and no end in sight. This is the Friday Free-for-All Rob Snow Show Talk Back Hour at 750-1310. We're back right after this on City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center. And we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said, absolutely. Right now, they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Marketmobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Marketmobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday free-for-all. So let's see what this person wants to talk about. Ann, Ottawa. Good morning, Ann.
Hi.
Hi, Ann.
Oh, this thing about, the federal government, that infrastructure bank, loaning all that money to the city of Ottawa, which, guess what? We, the taxpayer of the city, is going to have to pay for. But the federal government has no money to give the provinces for long-term care and health care. Mm-hmm. I mean, given how many seniors died in this past year, it's incredible that they're still flaunting this stupid green thing. And have you looked at a bus lately? How many people do you see on it? And if they get some expensive fleet, well, guess what? That bus pass that's already unaffordable is going to have to be even more unaffordable, and people are just going to go, what the heck? We have a car. I'll just drive everybody to their destination, and why pay like $150 each for crappy bus service, which is basically what we have in this city. But
I come back to this. When that announcement was made, didn't it sound like it was the federal government saying to the city of Ottawa, here's $400 million?
Oh, and I loved how you got...
Like, you really kind of have to pull it out of them.
He was dancing around it. I just thought that was very admirable, the way you actually... Well, and he finally admitted,
Yeah, it's a loan. It's a loan.
Oh, yeah. For God's sakes. Like, that is nothing to cheer. And I am so getting tired of most of the media crowing about how many first doses we have all had. We are not vaccinated, dudes, until we get both doses. And what did you say? Only 8% of us?
Well, as of this morning, it's 9%. Yeah.
Whoop-ee. That's like nothing. I mean, I'm probably going to have to wait till the end of July to get my second one. And I know a lot of people in the same position, also seniors, same deal. I just, it stinks, and I really wish more of them would be focusing on the number that don't have 2 doses. We all know that if it was a conservative government, that's what they'd be doing, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. This line right here. Dave in the West End. David.
Hi, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Rob. I have 2 of my biggest problems in life.
Yes.
One is I'm always early, never late.
Okay. Why is that a problem?
Well, and the other one is tied to it because I'm too observant.
Okay.
I hear and see everything that's going on.
Hear and see everything.
And that brings me to my topic, the nurses at the hospital. As you know, the wife is in the hospital with a broken hip.
Yes.
And I have such a feeling for those nurses, Rob. Mm-hmm. The way they have to tear up and down the hall, you never see the same one twice.
Yeah.
And why can't they work a regular shift like all human beings? You know what I mean? Like, some would appreciate working at night, some would like to work in the daytime.
Yes.
And then there's a middle shift. But oh my goodness, it breaks your heart to see how they have to operate, those ladies.
Well, I mean, we have a story here at City News this morning. They're hiring nurses. What hospital is it that's hiring the nurses and giving them a signing bonus? I'm not sure if it was the Queensway or the
I don't know. I didn't hear that yet.
Yeah. They need nurses so badly. The $10,000 signing bonus for nurses in Ottawa.
Well, that's because the way they're going to treat them when they get them in there. It's worth $20,000, not $10,000.
Okay.
You know,
they're run off their feet. I mean, even before the pandemic, I mean, they were run off their feet, right?
Well, it's because the way their shifts work. And like the nurse this morning, she had the wife's at one end of the hall. She had her, and she had somebody at the other end of the hall. And I sit. She's right at the door. I sit and watch. Mm-hmm. And my goodness, if I couldn't organize that better, you know, after running at the garbage company and so on, I don't know who does it, but it's shameful. Honest to God. Okay. It's shameful.
All right, David.
The way when you never see this, you know, and in the rehab center, these people, they're not sick. They need to be rehabilitated.
Yes.
And the nurse doesn't. When she comes in, she doesn't know what she needs, what she's had, and where she's going.
So you're always playing catch up. You always have to spend some time giving the history all over again, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I go in at 7:30 in the morning till 9.
Yeah.
And then I go at dinner time because sometimes the wife's asleep and they just bring the tray, stick it on the where it's supposed to be, and if she didn't wake up, she wouldn't eat. It's mind-boggling.
Okay.
Anyway,
all the best, Dave. All the best.
I put my word in for the nurses, and I hope they do better.
God bless them. Yeah. Thank you, David. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend there. Yeah, it's tough for David right now. In Barrhaven, David, good morning. Oh, that's my fault. Hold on. I got to press the right button here. I got you. Barrhaven, David. There we go.
Are you there?
Yes, I am right here.
Yeah, Rob.
Good morning.
About 3 months ago, I made a selfish call about a road situation in Barrhaven on Fallowfield where the track bed for Via Rail crosses.
Okay.
Big gaping gap in there, which I reported to the city last September. And they came back and they gave me a service number and everything and said, oh, yeah, we know about that. You know, we've already got that.
And this was in September, and now it's June.
When I called you in March, granted, it's more dangerous for bikers. I'm an old biker.
I see, okay.
Than cars, but it's still.
You mean a bicycle or a motor? I'm sorry, David. Do you mean a motorcycle or a bicycle?
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle,
yeah,
okay. Yeah,
bicycles shouldn't be on that part of the road.
All right, okay.
Anyways, I consider it quite dangerous. And I reported it. They said they knew about it back in September. It's still not fixed. So I was thinking if they're going to borrow $400 million to rejuvenate or electrify a disused bus system, maybe they could get an extra 25 cents to put some cold patch in that gap.
Gotcha.
And just look after the bikers.
Good point, sir. Well said, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call. And we'll take this one more call before halftime here on the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. It's on the Quebec side. Elmer, Bob, good morning.
Hi, Rob.
Hey.
Listen, I'm a huge Blue Jay fan, and your station has been a big broadcaster of the Blue Jays for many, many years.
Yes.
I'm just so frustrated as a Blue Jay fan with, and not only this year, but past years too, but with all the injuries that the players are sustaining. And in my view, and a lot of people's view, these injuries, many of them are conditioning injuries.
Okay.
We've got a guy, George Springer, who was signed for $150 million.
Oh, yeah. He was going to be the big savior here for the team, right?
Yeah. He's, we hardly seen him. We see him sitting on the bench laughing and having a good time, and he's the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
But here's a guy that was out because, first of all, he hurt his oblique muscle in his stomach area, and then coming back, he hurt the back of his leg, his thigh, running to first base. And he's not alone. I mean, many of the pitchers on the Blue Jays are on the sidelines because of strains and inflammation. And to me, sports fans, sports journalists, it would be great if some sports journalists would speak up and call these players out on what are largely conditioning injuries. Start making
They
them
should be in
accountable.
better shape, you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
When I played with my kids and all that, I understood when I tore a muscle or hurt myself running to first base trying to beat them. But these guys get paid millions and millions of dollars, and I can't watch them, and neither can anybody else because they're sitting on the bench or they're sidelined because they're not in the shape that they should be in. I think we should make them accountable.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Have a good weekend, Bob.
I think during the Talkback Hour, that is the first time I've ever taken a call about injuries to the Toronto Blue Jays, but I love calls like that. Halftime, Talkback Hour, Friday free for all, so look, anything goes, just like the last call. This is City News.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, June 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 20 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 18. And here's what's making news this hour. The province reporting another 574 new cases of COVID-19 today. 22 of the cases are in Ottawa. 3 are in Renfrew, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. No new cases today in Eastern Ontario. The cases come from just under 29,000 tests that were done, with a 2% positivity rate. A cancellation of Canada Day activities in BC's capital, not due to COVID. City councillors voted unanimously to cancel the planned Canada Day broadcast in order to permit a thoughtful reflection on what it means to be Canadian. A statement from the City of Victoria says council voted to scrap the virtual celebration following the discovery of what's believed to be remains of 215 former students buried in unmarked graves on the site of the now closed Kamloops Indian Residential School. Supreme Court of Canada has ruled in favor of unsealing the estate files of murdered Toronto billionaire couple Barry and Honey Sherman. The family has been trying to keep these files private. The 2017 killing of the couple, whose bodies were discovered in their home, remains unresolved. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Friday free-for-all, second half. 750-1310. Paul, you're on City News. Good morning, Paul.
A reverse Robin Hood. Do you know who's being called
Reverse Robin Hood? Yeah, I read that column by Jay Goldberg. Yeah,
right. So Jim Watson. So Jay Goldberg, Canadian Taxpayer Federation, he has a great article in the Citizen today talking about how tax breaks, similar to the ones handed out to the Porsche dealership, have been handed out to some other companies, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. We can put that aside, but it's kind of shocking to find out who they're going to and how much. Rideau Centre got 1.7 million. Sorry, 3.2 million. Walmart got 1.7 million to open up a store. Okay, Costco 4.5 million. This is Ottawa tax break. Tax breaks.
Yeah, this is under the Brownfields remediation program.
Yeah, and it's just you have Costco and Walmart reaping record profits under this pandemic at the expense of the rest of us. If they're getting the tax breaks, it's coming from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And certainly small business, in the article mentions this too, they're our rate. It's like, they're helping fund this as well, and you got to start questioning it. But there's another part of the story I want to sort of go with this. When it came out, the City of Ottawa Council went after the people that wanted to sort of leak this information. They're going after sort of the whistleblowers that are helping feed this information to us.
Who leaked it to John Willing at the Citizen, right?
That's right. Yeah. But this past week, internationally, there was another story of a similar nature where you have large corporations either getting no money or not paying taxes. In this case, it's ProPublica published or is going to be publishing the IRS returns on some of the
we had the ProPublica reporter was on our show yesterday.
Oh, excellent! I missed that. I'm really happy.
You'll have to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's I'm trying.
We're on top of it. Paul, and on Wednesday's show, I did a big rant. How long did I go on about the Brownfields program? Let me tell you, Paul, I've been following the Brownfields stuff for years. Okay, it's basically been me and Joanne Chianello, and that's about it in the city talking about this Brownfields program. And I said, there's a deal like this that is approved at every city council meeting, and lo and behold, you go through the agenda for this past city council meeting just on Wednesday. You dig a little deeper and you click a few clicks, and here there's an $80 million development going up, multi-use development, where Churchill and Scott
I know the location.
Are in Westboro, right?
Yeah, I know the location.
Trendy, fashionable, affluent Westboro. How much does a house cost in Westboro now? You won't find anything less than $1 million, right?
Yeah, quite. Yeah,
so here you go, $80 million development, and it's good to see development. But is that development not going to go ahead without $500,000 in incentives from the city? Why does the city have to put $500,000 in incentives in order to move forward with an $80 million development in one of the most affluent parts of the city? There's something like that at every city council meeting.
Yeah, exactly, and not just our city, not just our country, as we're seeing. And what's frustrating is, just as in our local case with the publishing of those IRS files by ProPublica, they're going after the whistleblowers with more vigilance than they are worried about dealing with the actual problem that's outraging, most people I talk to, and that just worries me. Like it's if we continue down this road, where does the path lead? That's
all right. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Rob. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, the reporter from ProPublica, one of the things that he pointed out yesterday was there was 1 year, because the thing is, with the ProPublica story and the reporter, what was his name? David, remind me, what was his
Paul
name?
Keel.
Paul Keel. Yeah, Paul Keel. Explained it so well yesterday. It's income tax, right? It's income tax. But the mega billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they don't pay themselves much in the way of income, so they pay very little in income tax, even though Jeff Bezos is worth whatever he's worth today, $130 billion. There was 1 year he reported negative income, even though he's one of the wealthiest individuals in the world. Negative income, okay? No income. So he qualified for a tax credit for his children.
$190 billion US today. That's his net worth.
That's his net worth today.
$190 billion.
$190 billion. That's something else, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, Derek, I'm in favor of lower taxes for everybody, but not zero for billionaires. Okay, not zero. Derek, good morning, Derek.
Good morning. I want to talk about the notwithstanding clause issue.
Go right ahead, yes.
Okay, Give me 30 seconds to lay it out.
Take your time.
First of all, I was a fan of Doug Ford, not anymore because of the school closures, but that's a topic for another day. But I think in this case, he's absolutely right. We have a twisted democracy. I mean, if you look back at the last federal election, the Conservatives had more votes, yet they're in opposition. They're not governing. That's another topic for another day. But at the beginning of your
what's
show...
the topic for today?
Topic for today. Sorry, let me stick to the point. At the beginning of your show, you mentioned something to the effect of, how would the left feel if evangelical churches, got together and had announcements or something, or Weston did or whatever.
Yeah, spent $9 million on, say, elect everyone who's like Sam Oosterhoff, for example.
Yeah, sure, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a fundamental difference. I actually have no problem with them doing that, and I do have a problem with the unions, and for one fundamental reason. The ultimate form of democracy is you vote with your dollars. Now, my understanding, a lot of jobs in Ontario that they teach or whatever, you cannot take it, and you're forced to join the union. You're forced to pay that money. If you walk into a church or you shop at Weston, you're making a choice. If you don't like what they're doing, you can walk down the street with your dollar bills, which is the truest form of democracy. But as a union, you're forced to contribute to their coffers, so it's totally different.
Okay. I don't think it's totally different, but
if you're forced to pay for it.
I see your point of view.
Okay,
but I will respectfully disagree. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Friday free-for-all, wide open on topics, wide open on the phone lines as well. We're going through them pretty quick. So we have about 15, 20 minutes to take a call. You want to talk to me, yell at me, scream at me, praise me for doing such a great job all week, by all means. 750-1310. Yeah, Premier Ford, notwithstanding clause, one of the biggest news stories of the week. And in about an hour's time, we'll be in the middle of a big debate. We'll do our Queen's Park Week in Review with our MPP. Should be red hot this morning. It's not a done deal just yet, but it will be. It's inevitable. Probably sometime this weekend or Monday. And as you would expect, it's not getting rave reviews. The Globe's editorial this morning says Ford he's actually doing the right thing in trying to limit these ads during election campaigns by special interest groups. But the Globe editorial says using the notwithstanding clause is totally the wrong way to go about it. That's according to the Globe. The Toronto Star, as you can imagine, not impressed. I mean, the Star, it's like the Toronto Star is like the arch enemy of Ford Nation, okay? And the editorial today basically calls what Ford is doing unforgivable. Headline, Ford is trampling on our rights again. Ontarians should not forget or forgive. Just a little bit from the Toronto Star editorial this morning on this move about the notwithstanding clause. This is Canada's most widely read newspaper. Quote, in Ontario, every premier before Ford managed to govern while respecting charter rights. But this premier clearly feels those rights matter little compared to his desire to settle scores with his political enemies in Toronto or to increase his chances of holding power at Queen's Park. Ontarians should not forget or forgive that. That's in the Star this morning. Now, whatever the Toronto Star says, it certainly didn't sway most of you yesterday when we did a rapid poll on this yesterday, and it wasn't really close. Most of you remember that 2014 campaign and how the Working Families Coalition flooded the airwaves with anti-PC attack ads. Tim Hudak was the leader of the party at the time. I mean, heck, even the OPP got into the act. Do you remember that? At the cops running attack ads. Partisan attack ads. The OPP was running political ads. First time the OPP union had ever done that. I shouldn't say the OPP. It was the OPPA. Okay. Running ads saying, don't vote Conservatives, vote Liberal. Even though at the time, and you remember this, ladies and gentlemen, what was the OPP doing? It was investigating the Liberal government. For multiple alleged crimes. Oh, yeah, it was a heck of a time. But anyway, ancient history, okay? Let's focus on the here and now. Let's focus on the here and now. And you can even set aside what Ford is doing in Ontario and Legault is doing in Quebec, which is much worse. And you may want to consider this idea, and maybe this is a thought I'll leave you with. And you can think about it over the weekend. The very idea that we have a notwithstanding clause in a document like a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I mean, it's part of the Charter. It's in there for a reason. We wouldn't have a Charter of Rights without it. It's an important part of Canadian history, this compromise. This compromise that came about because of the so-called Kitchen Accord, where you had Jean Chrétien. He was Pierre Trudeau's justice minister at the time, and you had two provincial AGs, McMurtry from Ontario, Romano from Saskatchewan. And they got a deal in the kitchen of the Government Conference Center across from the Chateau Laurier. Pierre Trudeau didn't want a notwithstanding clause. But Bill Davis in Ontario managed to change his mind and told him, Mr. Prime Minister, you're not going to get the provinces on side without a notwithstanding clause. In fact, this is how Jean Chrétien told the story to Steve Paikin during an episode of The Agenda on TVO. This is courtesy of TVO.
You know, after we were in the kitchen, I said, you two guys, you go and sell it to the province. I have a bigger problem. I have to sell it to Trudeau. You remember? I remember, yeah. And I went and arrived at Trudeau's home at 9 o'clock. We adjourned around 6 o'clock. So I went to have a little meal, and Trudeau and remember Goldenberg drove me to 24 Sussex. Right. 9, he dropped me there. I was going nowhere because the deal, Mr. Trudeau, was strongly opposed to the notwithstanding clause.
He wanted that charter left alone.
Yes, he was of the notion that, the court are to protect the rights, absolutely. I was of the other view, that the override was, in my judgment, giving the people, the last word.
The legislatures.
Yes, but in a difficult way. Because, the notwithstanding clause, you have to understand, you have to write down, notwithstanding the equality of this and that, I want to discriminate. It's better for you to have a good argument. And on top of it, after 5 years, you have to reintroduce it. So I felt comfortable with that. But Mr. Trudeau was not. And I said to him, I called him Pierre when I was little. Pierre, you can tell me to go head down on the wall, I'll do it. But I know the wall will not break, it will be me.
Jean Chrétien. So, maybe Pierre Trudeau was right all along about the notwithstanding clause. He did not want a notwithstanding clause. Pierre Trudeau thought rights in the Charter should be absolute. But the provinces were afraid that would give the courts too much power. Maybe Pierre Trudeau was right all along. I mean, should a constitution, it's a human rights declaration. Should it even have a notwithstanding clause? Yes, you're equal. Notwithstanding. Maybe that's the bigger question. Just how absolute are rights? It's always been one of the big questions since the Charter came into being. First you have the language that's in Section 1 of the Charter, the reasonable limits section, which has always been seen as an out clause. You have these rights, expression, religion, conscious rights, so on, and they're guaranteed unless it can be argued that those rights should be reasonably limited. And then you have the notwithstanding clause in the Charter, Section 33, part of the Charter. The override clause from the Kitchen Accord, or what they call in Quebec the Night of the Long Knives. But that's the political history. Do you really have freedom, fundamental freedom, freedom of thought, belief, expression, freedom of the press, the right to be secure against an unreasonable search, the right not to be arbitrarily detained, the right to a lawyer and habeas corpus and a speedy trial, and the right to bail, and all your equality rights against discrimination, race, national, ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, disability? Are you free or aren't you? Can you truly be free if a parliament can say, well, notwithstanding all of that, we're overriding these rights for the next 5 years? What kind of freedom is that? I'll be back. I'll shut up. I'll take your calls. Rob Snow Show, City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work, it's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real, There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
Talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
David in Ottawa, you're on City News. David.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Can you hear me all right?
Hear you just fine, sir. Yep.
I'm a local business owner. I deal with hundreds of businesses in the Ottawa area. And I've been interviewing clients all morning, just talking to them about what's going on in their business. And the ones I feel bad for right now are the salon owners. Okay. They're watching everybody reopen, and their income has been stymied for a long time. But now they're watching everybody open, and they're still not open. I don't know when the Ford government's going to get their act together in regards to how they proceed moving forward for business owners. But it's my opinion, if you can have 500 people at Constance Bay, you can have 6 people in a salon getting their hair cut.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not supposed to open, I don't think, until the last week of July. The last week of July.
I spoke to 3 of my salon owners alone this week, and they're just distraught.
Oh, yeah.
Just like everybody else is getting, being allowed to open, non-essential retail, essentially. It's just saddening. It was heartbreaking to talk to one of my salon owners who's been in business for 40 years in the Ottawa area, and he's talking about closing because they will not let them open. He's been in business and has hundreds of clients and cannot open 3 chairs in the store.
Yeah.
But yet we can have hundreds of people on a seat.
And it's an industry that employs a lot of people as well.
Well, and
something like 35,000 people work in that industry.
And here's the thing, the government's not looking at this, but I was thinking about it when I was waiting to get on. Good luck getting the woman's vote. Good luck getting the woman's vote for the next conservative government, because they're not going to get it. There's zero chance. The salon owners are losing their minds. So to all the salon owners out there, I'm with you. I feel you guys, and hopefully the government gets their act together soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your call this morning. Chris in Almont on Bill C-10. Chris, go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Bill C-10.
Yeah.
To regulate the internet, in effect, they're going after Rebel News, True North, and Black Bloc.
Well, maybe I would say it goes well beyond just those 3 news outlets.
Oh, yeah.
Sir. I would say it goes. I would say, given what is in there, given what is there about user-generated content, it's not just about Rebel and True North or Black Blocs or Canada Land or name your news outlet, name your website, The Logic, whoever it is. They're going after anyone who posts anything on the internet and shares anything on the internet, sir.
That's true.
And it's not just news. It's it's TikTok, it's YouTube, it's any platform.
Yeah, but this is the shotgun. What they're really aiming for is these 3 contrarian news organizations.
I think it goes well beyond that, sir. And it's just the first shot. They're not done yet. Okay, giving these new powers to the CRTC, there may be yet another regulatory body that comes after it to control speech and content online even more than what we have now. They're talking about internet kill switches. You take this down, you have 24 hours, or we're going to fine you $15 million. I mean, it's really, really outrageous stuff what they're plotting. In Avonmore, Alec, good morning, Alec.
Yes, on the news, you guys have been talking a lot about freedom and equality. And I just want to make a point I don't think anybody's really looking at or mentioning. So the government's already talking about only letting people who have 2 vaccines across the border and stuff like that. It's really encroaching on our our rights, our freedom. Like, if you don't have 2 vaccines, you can't go here, can't go there. It's segregation all over again. So we have government talking about equality and freedom, but yet they're trying to take equality and freedom away from the unvaccinated. It seems I mean, I know life's not fair, but it seems unfair.
Okay, unfair. Okay, Alec, thank you. Thank you. And this will be the last call for the... Well, I got one good rant in during the talkback hour, David. Okay, that's all I need sometimes.
That's par for the course.
Got to get let loose sometimes. Wayne, I'm curious about your call, Wayne, because it just says Wayne wants to talk about milk.
Yeah, do you know where I could buy a cow? No, the prices of milk are crazy. They're going through the roof.
Prices for everything are going through the roof, sir. Yeah.
But why milk, though?
Well, I mean, prices for food stuff are way up, sir. You know, I told this a couple of weeks ago. It's $7 for a pound of butter now.
Holy jump is the gas prices?
Gas prices around the corner here, $1.32. I don't know what they are in your neighborhood, but $1.32. And they're saying oil is going back to $100 a barrel, sir. Right now it's only $70 a barrel. What's the price of gas going to be at $100 a barrel?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not only, when you get that cow, you're going to have to ride it to work, Wayne.
Yeah, better than taking the bus.
All right. Talk to you later, Wayne. Thank you. Hey, thank you for all your calls. G7 meeting in Cornwall. No, that one. The one in the UK. And we're going to talk about it with Professor Elliot Tepper, International Affairs Professor from Carleton University. What's in it for Canada? And how important is this for U.S. President Joe Biden? That's coming up right after the news here on City News.
Local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, June 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 20 degrees. It's 18 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province reporting another 574 new cases of COVID-19 today. Now, 22 of these cases are in Ottawa. There are 3 in Renfrew, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 0 new cases in Eastern Ontario. The cases come from the province, just under 29,000 tests completed and a positivity rate of 2%. The province also says There were 4 more deaths from COVID-19. A mobile health unit provided to help the city's most at risk has now been converted to ensure that same population is able to get their COVID-19 vaccination. Here is City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Ottawa Inner City Health, along with other community partners, were provided a fully equipped medical unit on wheels before the pandemic hit, but it has since shifted purpose and is currently being used as a mobile vaccination clinic. Ottawa Inner City Health CEO Wendy Muckle tells me the van serves as a clinic perfectly and breaks down some of the spots it hit so far.
We went obviously to all of the shelters. We went to a lot of the congregate settings for youth. And what was really effective was that you basically didn't have to set up inside.
She says the mobile unit allows for staff to vaccinate everyone in those settings within a matter of hours. Inner City Health has been targeting those who cannot get vaccinated in any other way whatsoever. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 11:02. And now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any showers won't last long. Generally mainly cloudy today. May get some sunshine, especially as we work toward the latter part of the day. The high 25, 12 for the low, partly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, looking pretty good for the most part. Sun and cloud, 27 tomorrow. Mainly cloudy Sunday, 26. For today, the high, 25.
And right now in Ottawa, 20 degrees, it's 18 in Smiths Falls. Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that a trove of files related to murder victims Barry and Honey Sherman will be unsealed and open to public access. Unanimous decision found the trustees of the wealthy Toronto couple's estate failed to establish a serious risk to their safety and privacy, and that public interest and the principle of open court proceedings require unlocking the files. In June 2018, a lower court judge issued an order protecting the files, which concerned the appointment of estate trustees and would ordinarily be available for public inspection. Barry Sherman was a billionaire chairman and CEO of pharmaceutical firm Apotex, who was found murdered with his wife in their home on December 15th, 2017. City News time, 11:03. After a successful first season, Encore Ottawa is back for Season 2 with a premiere episode kicking off tonight. The second season features 23 performances, over 60 local musicians, and kicks off with a 2-hour premiere concert featuring singles from each of 23 upcoming weekly concerts. Jamie Kwong is executive director of the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition and tells City News what one of the goals this series has.
Introduce Ottawa's artists. Like right now, we couldn't bring in artists from outside, so it's very important for like we see the importance of nurturing local talent, so we always have that local talent.
The series airs Fridays on Rogers TV Ottawa at 8 o'clock and features local talent, including Monkey Junk, Jessica Pearson, and others. Rogers is the parent company of this radio station. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
World leaders have begun their talks at the G7 summit taking place in the resort of Carbis Bay in Cornwall in the southwest of England. And to tell us what's up for discussion and look at some of the big issues at play is Professor Elliot Tepper, International Affairs Professor from Carleton University. You hear him every week during the Mark Sutcliffe Show. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you. What are the big issues?
There's two parts to this. The big issues are the ones we're going to hear about. The world is going to get together. Remember, these are the major democracies of the world, the leading advanced industrial democracies. And this is a norm-setting, goal-setting exercise, which is held every now and then, every year, if they can do it. The main purpose of this one up front is to deal with the global pandemic crisis. So the visible part of all that we're going to see is that primarily this is going to deal with what can we do now that the crisis seems to be more or less under control in these countries that are meeting, what can be done to help the world. Big pledges are being made. You probably saw that Joe Biden, prior to the meeting, said the United States is now going to have 100 billion doses. So the whole idea here, 100 billion doses. So they hope to get 1 billion dose commitment. Canada will be contributing to that. And that's in turn meant to kickstart the global economy. And that in turn allows the other agenda items to come into play, which is dealing with security and overwhelmingly the climate.
Yeah. In fact, yesterday, President Biden announced a 500 million dose commitment to to 100 poor countries around the world.
Yes.
I'm wondering how significant this summit is for President Biden post-Trump, Professor. What do you think?
Well, this is why I said there's the visible part and the tacit part of all global meetings, all major meetings, summits of all kinds. This is Joe Biden's effort to say, really, the message out of all of this is, I'm back. The world is back. There is no vacuum anymore in world affairs. The democracies are going to get together, and we are going to close the vacuum that was created by the withdrawal of American leadership under Donald Trump. The democracies of the world are now going to not invite interference by us not being there. So we are back. We are now going to be, off the record. There's going to be disagreements on all kinds of little things and big things, but the major message of the G7 this year is that there is no longer a vacuum in world affairs, that the opportunity for interference by forces hostile to democracies is closed.
Okay. What are the priorities for Canada at this particular summit, do you think?
Canada, remember, we've hosted two of these meetings since they began in 1976, most recently in Charlevoix, and we know that ended disastrously because Donald Trump was there. He didn't like multilateralism. Canada has as one of its main strengths that we believe in multilateralism, and we're good at it. The meeting went pretty well, all in all, but then it blew up immediately afterwards because the joint communique was rescinded by Donald Trump because of some comments made in a post-meeting news conference. What Canada wants out of all this is, there's particular things. Canada has emphasized gender equality in particular, climate, and the opening session by Boris Johnson underlined a Canadian theme that building back better, which is the theme of the G7, is what Canada really wants, that it's going to deal with equity, not just increased growth, but more equitable growth. And most important of all, Canada shares getting everything under control in terms of COVID. But what Canada really is also saying is we belong here. We are part of the global consensus of democracies, and we are at the table.
Yeah. Nevertheless, not a great start in terms of a kind of a public perception point of view when the Globe and Mail says we're the only country that has yet to make an international commitment on surplus vaccines. It's not a good look for us.
No, and probably everybody read that. It has been announced Canada will be contributing. When we have succeeded in rolling out our own vaccinations across the country, Canada will be contributing 100 million shots toward that 1 billion that is going to become the official goal of the G7. So we have said we're also raising our contribution to COVAX, the WHO Central Fund, out of which we drew, by the way, when we were at our low point. But Canada has pledges for like 5 times the required vaccinations for our entire population once supply gets into place. So Canada has joined the international consensus.
Okay. How much discussion do you think there will be about China's place in the world and trying to perhaps isolate China or renew some kind of alliance against China? Give us your sense of that, Professor.
Yes, I think you put your finger right on it, Rob. This is really a G7 meeting about COVID, about commerce, that is, get COVID under control and get the world economy going again. But really, this could also be called the China G7 because much of what we are hearing and much of what we're not going to hear in the really valuable off-the-record conversations, and I'm sure the two Michaels will be raised in that regard, is that this is primarily about China. This is a G7 about China, and NATO. There's a follow-up meeting in NATO. Pierre, our Prime Minister Trudeau will be at that one. This is about what is the world going to do about China. It's there. It is exhibiting behavior that's not acceptable to the democracies of the world, and what are we going to do about that? So much of the actual subtext of this meeting, remember Joe Biden said, not only are we going to provide all these doses, but we're doing it with no strings attached. So this was a direct dig at China and Russia. They've been using vaccine diplomacy. The United States and Canada and the others are saying we believe in vaccine equity, not vaccine diplomacy. But what they're really saying is we're not going to do like China, which is try to gain political leverage through the use of vaccine distribution. This is entirely, I think, the subtext of this G7, what to do about China.
This one seems, this is my impression of it, seems to be much more consequential to me. In years past, when these events would be held, a communique would be issued, and it would be sort of, I don't know, flowery. Yep. We agreed to build, continue trying to build an economy that works for everyone, fight against climate change, which is the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced. I mean, it writes itself, and it was probably written 3 weeks before the meetings ever began. But this one seems to actually matter with big issues in play.
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct. There are big issues. The theme is, building back better, not build back better. I was thought about that was a kind of a lame slogan, but it is the central theme. Yes, this is supposed to restart normality. Mm-hmm. Let's get going. We have to work together to solve the world's problems, and this is what this summit's about, getting together to solve the world's problems. We'll have our disagreements among ourselves, but the democracies are standing shoulder to shoulder. Remember, they've now added as invited guests Australia, South Korea, India, and South Africa. So this is a group of democracies saying it's time to get back to normal. Donald Trump isn't there. Joe Biden is. Joe Biden's saying, the U.S. will play its part in leadership once again. So let's get back to solving the world's problems. So I think in a pandemic-driven world, yes, I think you're absolutely correct. This is consequential.
I thank you again for your time. It's always a pleasure to have you on City News, Professor. Thank you again.
A pleasure to be with you, Rob.
Yeah. From Carleton University, that's Professor Elliot Tepper. On a much more lighter note, we will talk about the Final Four in the National Hockey League playoffs, and can the Habs keep it rolling? Steve Warne will join us next from the Steve Warne Project and the Sens Nation podcast. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly. But it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food. So nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm. So supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and had the food there, you can really like compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have like from combos and to like small sandwiches. Our one of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to our platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
In sports. And then there were four, down to four in the National Hockey League playoffs. It will be the Montreal Canadiens against the Vegas Golden Knights and the New York Islanders versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. And to break things down for us and chat about a few more things, Steve Warne is here from the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Happy patio day.
Yes, very nice to hear from you, Steve, and welcome back. Well, let's break it down. It's the Habs. It's the Vegas Golden Knights. Who do you like?
Well, I think you'd be. I mean, if you're a Hab fan, then you probably will be giving a little love to the Montreal Canadiens. But I think anybody who's not affiliated with the Habs sees this series as quite a mismatch. Vegas is just too good. The Montreal Canadiens, I regard them as a team that's on a nice streak right now. Yep. They're piping hot. They've won 7 straight. And I guess you need to ask yourself, Rob, like, is this who the Montreal Canadiens really are? And if your answer is sure, yeah, these are the real Montreal Canadiens, then yes, they have a chance in this series. They'll probably continue playing this well indefinitely. Could win the Cup. But if your answer is no, that they're not this good, and I'm probably in that camp, if the thought is they're just, riding a hot streak exactly like they did back in January, if that's the case, then things are probably due to cool off exactly like they did in January, to the point where they fired their coach. So if they're just on a hot streak, and what's worse for a hot streak than a week off, I don't like their chances in this series.
To me, the Montreal Canadiens are going to go as far as Carey Price is going to take them. That's what it comes down to for me. And so far, he has been, let's face it, he's been spectacular. If he can, I think if Carey Price can give the Montreal Canadiens the kind of goaltending that he's been giving them, I wouldn't put it past them that they could beat Vegas. I wouldn't put it past them at all.
Well, that sounds like you and me need to put a couple of shekels on this series.
No. Look, if the Montreal Canadiens can score 3 goals a game, they could win every game, because it's going to be tough to score 3 on Carey Price in any given game, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough to score on Vegas's goaltending. You have a look at their goals against average. Like Marc-Andre Fleury leads everybody right now. He's the only guy, I think, in the playoffs with a goals against average under 2. And the Habs aren't exactly blessed with the most firepower. Yeah. So when you say that, if they get 3 goals, that's easier said than done. I really think Vegas is maybe the most balanced team remaining in these playoffs. So they're such a tough out, and I just don't see Montreal being able to score or being able to shut down guys like Mark Stone in this series, Vegas is just really well balanced. Whatever you want to throw at them, whatever kind of game you want to come at them with, they're ready to roll. And if you watch that Colorado series, a lot of people thought Colorado would win the Cup this year. For Vegas to do what they did in that series, that's really damn impressive.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I was just... Steve, I was so wrong on the Leaf series, and I never saw them sweeping the Jets, so I just... I read the Montreal Gazette sports section every morning now, and, I mean, some of their writers are talking about, maybe it is kind of like 93. And I remember watching 93 and the Habs and the Kings and that whole run and the overtime wins. I don't know. What do you think about 93, the comparisons to 93? Is it premature to draw those comparisons now if you're a Habs fan to bask in that kind of nostalgia right now? What do you think, Steve?
Well, it did seem to, and this one does too, they both seem to be runs that were kind of, had sprinkled magic dust all over those runs. Thinking of 93 and the number of times they won games in overtime, even going to, some of the fortunate moments like the illegal stick measurement that really bailed the Canadians out in the I think it was the first game of that final, and they ended up coming back to win because of it. There is certainly, if you believe in the magic of the playoffs, the ghosts of the Forum past, the magic of it all, the intangibles. Yeah, you could certainly talk yourself into that, but I can't put away what I saw over 56 games this year with the Montreal Canadiens. And you only have to go back, roughly 2 weeks ago tonight when the Habs were down 3-1, all those same Montreal writers you just talked about were burying that team. Oh my God, this team is flawed. It's poorly constructed.
Done. Time to got to shake things up. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, it's a good matchup. So Marc-Andre Fleury, is he the starting goalie for Vegas?
Correct.
Marc-Andre Fleury versus Carey Price. Pretty good goalie matchup. That makes it worth watching right there, I think. So the others... Oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead. Yep.
No, I was just going to say there's lots of interesting storylines, I think, about the matchup of Max Pacioretty. Probably never envisioned going to Vegas and then eventually one day facing his team in a series this big. But this is the quirks of the weird formatting we have in this year's playoffs, but that's another storyline as well.
Okay. So the other series, New York Islanders, Tampa Bay Lightning. Who do you like there? But you, at the beginning of the playoffs, you picked the Islanders as kind of your dark horse team. So here they are.
They were the team I picked to win the Stanley Cup. I still like them a lot, although I'm worried. As well as the Islanders played through the first two rounds, Tampa Bay is awfully good. Speaking of teams that are built for whatever kind of game you want to throw at them, that team is just, the goaltender's fantastic. They have great defense, and led by Victor Hedman. They have superstars in guys like Kucherov and Stamkos, who are doing exactly what the Lightning pay them to do, and that's score in bunches. So they're going to be a tough out, but certainly I'll stick with the Islanders since I picked them at the start of the playoffs. Barry Trotz, he won a cup, of course, with the Washington Capitals a couple of years ago. He has such a good way about him as a coach. Such a balanced attack, kind of like Bill Belichick in the NFL. Like, he understands how to neutralize the other team's stars. That's what I like about him. And when you're talking about the Islanders, how can you, as a Sens fan, not mention J.G. Pageau, who has been just a warrior? You think about his 4-goal game with the Sens back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
He's been amazing again in these playoffs. He's the 4th leading scorer overall in these playoffs. So everybody that the Sens were letting him walk out the door in a trade that were saying, he's only a third-line player. Talk to the New York Islanders and hear what they have to say about the impact that he has on their team.
Yeah. How much is he making, do you figure, in a season these days?
Pageau's contract is a 6-year deal worth $5 million per season.
$5 million a year, okay.
Which, by the way, is almost exactly what the Sens paid Colin White a few months earlier before letting Pageau go in a trade. I think if they'd like to do it over again, they'd probably rather have Pageau than Colin White.
Yeah, I am a big Pageau fan. And, that's the thing. It's even though we're excited as Senators fans about the future of the team, it is kind of hard to watch Pajot doing as well as he is with another team. And then for Vegas, of course, Mark Stone is like the heart and soul of that team. So, and he's having a great playoff as well, right?
Imagine if they meet in the Stanley Cup final, Rob. The town will be like, it would be the regret bowl. We'll call it.
Yes, it will. So you're picking then? Are you picking an Islanders Knights final then, Steve?
It's such a difficult one because if you asked me to put money on it right now, I'd probably go Tampa Bay, but I'm sticking with the Islanders because that was my pre-playoff pick. I've just been that impressed with Tampa. They're so good.
Yeah.
So if anybody's investing in this, let's say, Tampa Bay, Vegas, all the way.
Any big Sens news to report? Seems kind of quiet on the Sens front. What's going on?
Well, I think we're all kind of looking at our watches and sort of tapping our foot and going, okay, are we going to get this Brady Tkachuk thing rolling anytime soon?
Yeah.
He's without a contract. He needs to be the next captain. I think Eugene Melnyk kind of, didn't help matters really when he on the Bob McCowan show recently said something along the lines of that, if you're on a bridge contract, we don't want you to be our captain. I'm paraphrasing. He said something along those lines. And that's not exactly, breaking news or anything, and not exactly a bad policy, but it's a little heavy-handed while negotiations are going on. It just seems to be pushing the issue a little more than maybe you need to. Let the negotiations happen, and we can talk captaincy later on. But Melnyk made it sound like, you know what, Brady, you're not going to be the captain of this team if that's something you want, if you're planning to sign a 4 or 5 year contract and not the max.
Well, I wish there was hockey this weekend. There's not. Games don't start until Monday, but at least the patios are open, and that's good news.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to tipping a couple of drinks with my wife this weekend.
Great
so,
stuff.
yeah, it's going to be very refreshing, and hopefully the weather cooperates.
Have a great weekend, Steve. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Yep. From the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project on all your podcasting platforms, that is Steve Warne. Okay, this is going to be a good one. Queen's Park Week in Review on a big, important week in Ontario politics. Our MPPs will join us right after the news on City News.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, the 11th of June. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, cloudy and 20 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Provincial health officials report 22 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 574 new cases across Ontario. There were 4 new deaths in Ontario due to the virus. Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirms no new cases in the past 24 hours, but 1 case has been added from a previous date. Public Health Ontario is reporting no new cases of COVID-19 in Eastern Ontario and 3 new cases in Renfrew. The health units will update their numbers in the afternoon. 6 leaders at the G7 summit in southwest England have announced their commitments to help poorer countries slow COVID-19. Only one who hasn't yet is the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. UK wants leaders to give developing countries access to 1 billion doses of vaccine through donations and funding. It hopes this will speed up the timeline to defeat novel coronavirus. Canadian government officials says Canada will pledge up to 100 million doses, including what it bought for others in vaccine sharing initiatives. Joe Biden will become the 13th American president to meet Queen Elizabeth. Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will take tea with the Queen at Windsor Castle on Sunday after the G7 summit ends. The Queen has met every American president since Dwight Eisenhower, except for Lyndon Johnson, who did not visit Britain while he was in office. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All right, the gang's all here. So let's jump right into it. Let me introduce everyone. Gilles Bisson is a New Democrat MPP. The riding is Timmins. Good morning.
Good morning. Hail, we're all here.
David Piccini is a progressive conservative MPP. Your riding is Northumberland-Peterborough South. There we go, Northumberland-Peterborough South. Good morning from Brighton today, David Piccini. Yeah, nice to hear from you. John Fraser, Ottawa South, just around the corner from here. And he's the Liberal, of course, Liberal health critic for the Liberals. Okay, so notwithstanding clause to be invoked, probably sometime this weekend, maybe Monday, that's kind of the buzz, in order to maintain spending limits that were ruled unconstitutional by an Ontario judge. David Piccini, why is your government doing this?
Well, we're doing it to protect the level playing field for our democracy, to preserve it. Rob, under the court decision, there would be no limits, no disclosure, and no caps for billionaires, corporations, third-party interest groups, and perhaps, Rob, the most concerning for me is foreign entities. And so I think this takes us back decades to where a Wild West in Ontario, where we already know that they spend tens of millions, and this is more than even at the federal level. So I think this is building on Premier Wynne, who first passed legislation that we strengthened. And even with that, I would add third-party groups still spent millions. So, you know, in the words of Bernie Sanders, I would say money is not speech and corporations are not people. And we agree that's why we're moving this legislation, invoking the notwithstanding clause, to ensure that it's everyday Ontarians that have the say in the next election, and they're not drowned out by third-party PACs, American-style PACs.
You're what comes to mind when I think of Bernie Sanders, David Piccini. You and him, kindred spirits. You and Bernie, can't wait to see you with the sweater and the mittens. Okay, Gilles Bisson. That's the progressive conservative side of this. Whole thing. Do you want to go back to the days? Do you want to go back to the days of the free for all? You don't want to go back to the days of the free for all.
Oh my God, no! First of all, I want to give David an award for the best spin of the morning. That was a really good attempt on the part of the Conservatives to try to spin their way out of what is the
hearing yours,
Hey.
I look forward to hearing your spin.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So listen. All right, if there was a problem, didn't the Tories get elected in a majority government in the last election? Like, what happened last election compared to this election that makes them to want to undo the court decision? Because the reality is that third-party advertising has been around for a while. It was successfully used by Conservatives against both Liberals and New Democrats leading up and during the last election, type of thing. We're not having a conversation about, how we can deal with that in any kind of nonpartisan way. If they think there's an issue, they should refer refer this to a nonpartisan committee or commission in order to be able to deal with it, but that's not what they did. They brought an act into the House. They gave themselves the ability to raise the amount of money that they raise individually. They tripled it, and then they got rid of third-party advertising, and the courts have said, no, that's not good. So in the end, when a society does not follow the rule of law, in other words, Mr. Ford says, I don't like the Constitution, I'm just going to do what I want, it is a really slippery slope, and there's all kinds of situations in our history where governments of all stripes have done this across the world, and it never ends well. This is a really bad move, and there wasn't a problem in the last election. There wasn't a problem in the election before, so why are they having to do this?
Okay. John Fraser on the notwithstanding clause.
Gilles right. Gilles right. They almost tripled the donation limits, so people with a lot of money can contribute. I'm not sure that's taking big money and PACs out of things. So I don't think that's I don't think that's a genuine concern. Look, the notwithstanding clause isn't like a get out of jail free card when you don't like the fact that the courts told you actually you're infringing on people's freedom of expression. And we have a constitution in this country, and here's what it says, and here's how I interpret it. And now here's the real kicker. It's like literally we have an emergency debate. We're going to be debating midnight at Friday. I'm happy to go in. I'd be happy to go in and debate schools or the vaccine rollout or Islamophobia and what we're going to do about it. But no, it's, Doug Ford moves at lightning speed when something is his political imperative. But, if you want paid sick days, well, it takes 14 months dragging, screaming, and kicking to get 3. And that's the last thing I'll say is, our kids, they're not in school. They're going to have to wait till September. And that's because there's no plan for schools. And there's not one for this September either. They can wait. But the house is on fire. It's a 5-alarm fire. It's crazy.
I got to jump in here, Rob.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Lots to unpack. So first of all, for folks listening, in terms of what an everyday Ontarian can spend, the limits on that expenditure is on par average relative to the rest of this country, despite the fact that we're the largest province. Secondly, the Constitution. I don't know if Gilles was paying attention in grade 10-9 there, but Section 33 is part of it. So Gilles, just at least acknowledge that to give a fair analysis of this debate. Number 3, with respect to this idea that this has gone on forever, first and foremost, let's be honest here. The Premier Wynne brought in legislation for the last election. Still, we spent more than the feds. We strengthened that legislation. And let's think back to the days when John and his buddies, the cash for access, gas plant scandals, when it was a who's who of corporate green energy contract friends, and it wasn't uncommon for these $1,000 plate plus, and corporations donated, not individuals. That's the key.
David, you forgot to talk about Mitch Tepper.
So I think that's the distinction here. If everyday Ontarians want to donate, they play within a playing field that is average and on par with the rest of Canada. What we're taking away here is massive third-party groups. And if John and Gilles are so scared that their idea, that their positive vision for Ontario is so bad that they need foreign entities and third-party groups to influence Ontarians, that's sad.
I would point out, David, I would point out, and that the Toronto Star, which I know is your favorite newspaper, David, mine too, don't worry, in its editorial today, accuses your government of, quote, reviving the discredited cash for access system.
Yeah.
That your government revived it. Yeah. Your government revived it. Okay.
If you read the Star, you also saw the editorial there on supporting the use of notwithstanding clause. So, in our favorite newspaper was both. And again, cash for access, I draw a distinct difference between individuals, everyday Ontarians, and corporations who cut endless checks from their corporation. And this isn't about, who does it for conservatives or liberals.
Well, cash for access, I don't want to get too far off track from the notwithstanding, but cash for access is, we're not going to have a meeting on the record about a particular public policy issue, whether it's long-term care or mental health care or labor standards or whatever some minister might be dealing with in the Ontario government. But if you would like to donate $500 to the Liberal Party or to the Progressive Conservative Party, we can give you a table at our fundraiser and come to our special dinner. That's cash for access. That's what the Liberals were doing. Yeah. And the Toronto Star says your party is doing the same thing.
I think, again,
for more money.
It's important to know individuals.
Hey, Rob.
It's
Okay.
Yes.
So a couple of things. First of all, Dave, you might have been in grade 10 during the last constitutional talks, but I was at the table. I was a member of the select committee that dealt with well, I'm aging myself,
ageism
so
on the Rob Snow Show.
I know well the dossier of the Constitution and the notwithstanding clause.
I will invoke the Rob Snow notwithstanding clause. Ageism is okay right here, right now.
It's okay in this case. Yeah. But anyways, I thought that was funny. But the other thing is that what we're having here now in this show is a debate about who's worst. The Liberals had cash for access, but we're having cash for access, but it's different than their cash for access, so it's okay.
Nobody said that.
It's just like, come on, let's talk what about really this is all about.
Okay.
John is right. John touched on something which I think the public understands. There are parents with autistic kids who are dearly wanting the government to respond to the issues around autism. We've been waiting 3 years. It's a snail's pace, and here we are, lickety-split, going to introduce legislation that helps the Conservatives because why? They don't want people in the next election leading up to it talking about long-term care, talking about autism, and talking about many of the other issues that people are concerned about when it comes to what this government hasn't done. That's what this is all about. When they were in opposition, they were fine with, what did they call it, Ontario Proud and a number of other organizations that spent more than what the limits allow under the proposed legislation in order to discredit both the then government under the Liberals and the opposition. So they're trying to argue this out of both sides of the mouth, and I think, quite frankly, I just return to the first point. When you don't respect the rule of law, you're in trouble.
Okay, John Fraser.
Yeah, look, Gilles, I want to give another example. It's we're rushing back with this emergency session of Parliament.
Yeah.
But in Ottawa, for the last 2 weeks, if you're 70 plus, you probably have not been able to book a second dose. And there's a problem with the delivery or the amount of vaccines that Ottawa's getting. Finally got fixed this weekend. But for 2 weeks, it took 2 weeks to get there. And there was radio silence from the government members here, from Lisa MacLeod and Dr. Fullerton. So the issue that's really driving me crazy right now is, what about parents with children with autism? What about vaccine rollout? What about schools? Huh? What about the things that are most important to Ontarians? You can't say we're trying to protect democracy and keep big money out and triple the limits. And by the way, Doug Ford's leadership campaign continued to collect money long after it had paid off its debt because they could double up on the limits. They found a loophole in the law. So all this piety and purity, right, coming from David, who I like a lot.
All right.
It's
Okay.
just like, no, it's not altruistic.
Okay.
It's to serve a political.
Just to remind people, then we'll stop. We'll come back. We'll pick up on these topics. Don't worry. Ontario Proud, in case people forgot Ontario Proud, this was Ontario Proud here.
New from Ontario Proud, the all-original Kathleen Wynne collection. You'll hear such Ontario Liberal Party greatest hits as the gas plant scandal, cash for access, e-health, don't forget the Kathleen Wynne mega hit, skyrocketing hydro bills, and many more. Yes, 15 years of memories in one scandalously high-priced double LP and cassette. The Kathleen Wynne Collection. And she's just getting started. Available wherever elections are held. A message from Ontario Proud.
Who's dancing right now? I feel like dancing right now. Okay. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, is got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying, and then I shut my business down for I think a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries. Started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're still talking about the notwithstanding clause, election advertising, campaign fundraising, all of these things. With our MPP Gilles Bisson, the New Democrat, Progressive Conservative David Piccini, and Liberal John Fraser. Now, we played the Ontario Proud ad. So in the interest of fairness, because I'm all about fairness, this is a classic from the Working Families Coalition.
Do you remember when the Conservative Party ignored the homeless, froze the minimum wage, canceled social programs, and downloaded services to municipalities? 4 years later, social assistance has been increased, and the minimum wage has been raised every year. There's even a new Ontario Child Benefit Program to help kids. But the Conservatives are hoping to turn back our progress, and that's what's at stake in this election.
Cow, why would anybody vote for those mean and nasty, cold-hearted conservatives?
It was clairvoyant. Well, it was actually pretty factual.
So was the other one. And I'll tell you what, the other one was a lot more uplifting. That one does not make me want to dance, okay?
No, but the point I was making earlier, very quickly, is that the Tories used that tool against the Liberals and New Democrats in the last election, and it worked for them in the last election. And now all of a sudden, they know that parents with autistic kids and various groups out there that are upset because they haven't moved on issues are going to do it to them, and they're desperate to vigorously trying to get rid of that. So they're saying Constitution? Constitution. What's that?
All right, David. David. Here's a question that I have for you because it's been raised repeatedly on the show this week. Is instead of going, there are multiple avenues that your government could pursue. You could appeal this ruling. This is a lower court ruling. You could appeal. You could have the Attorney General ask for an expedited decision, like a stay, as was the case with the Toronto City Council thing. Why not pursue that instead of what your critics will say, using a sledgehammer to swat a fly here? What's going on?
Yeah, and I'll note we won that court case with respect to council a while back. But anyway, this issue here is a matter of urgency because it repeals back not only the strengthened legislation we brought forward, but everything, and we are now in a lead up to the election. So I think when it comes to preserving democracy, putting the ideas and the old principle of, if I want to represent this community, I run down Third Line Road, I look a farmer in the eye, and I tell him or her why I want to represent them, and we debate ideas and we talk issues. And that's what we're heading into right now. And we want to ensure that foreign entities and the Americanization, which is just gutter politics. And with respect, gutter politics. This isn't about Ontario proud. This isn't about any specific group. I think it is in the interest of all of us to pull away from what we see south of the border. And when it comes to paid sick days and other issues, we're the first province to have rolled out a program for that. Speaking of urgency, where was the urgency when we let our PPE expire under John's tutelage? Where was the urgency when all of our long-term care homes? I mean, this is if we want to talk about age, Gilles will remember them because I was probably in grade 5, but he was, working on the Constitution.
More ageism.
When
have to invoke the notwithstanding clause again.
The 60s were dilapidated, so we're investing in new long-term care beds. We've increased the hospital funding formula. We've increased the number of nursing seats for the first time in 20 years.
All well and good.
So, with respect to urgency, we're moving.
Okay.
We're moving
let me hear from your colleagues here on that. Okay.
John, John, can go ahead.
John?
Sorry. Are you there?
No. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John. Yep.
I'm not on mute. Listen, I just heard David quote Thomas Walcom, Bernie Sanders, and it said Americanization about 4 times. Gilles, I think you've got a new member.
Are you crossing? David's going to cross the floor?
Sorry, I hadn't thrown that in.
I'm certainly not David.
Look, here's your question is here's the reality.
In fact, it's John's party that could use the members,
There we go. I like him a lot, but I think he's too far left for me.
You're too far right for me.
So look, we got this crazy emergency debate going on. I'd be happy to do it if it was an emergency. But why even forget the fact they shouldn't be doing this? Why would we not come back for a regular session for a week or 2 weeks, debate this thing out along with other really important things, have a couple question periods, do what we would normally do in business? It's just so disproportionate with the things that are important to Ontario families.
And allow the public to come to committee.
It's like the house is on fire and they're in a panic mode.
Okay.
But, the vaccine
that's another question. That's another question for David. Why not, strike, say, a committee to, this was Duff Conacher's idea from Democracy Watch. Have a committee, what's an appropriate spending limit? What's an appropriate time frame? Is 6 months, $600,000 the right figure? Does it need to be longer? Does it need to be shorter? Why not do any of that?
Because we had.
The election's a year away, David.
Yeah, but Rob, we had that. We went through committee. It went through the democratic process, not only under the previous government, but under our government when we took measures to strengthen it. It's gone through all of that. So, of course, I'm blown away that there's no interest apparent here, which is a total turn from Liberal parties of old, which actually did want to limit third-party spending and, did want to take a long look at that, as we've done across...
the way the Liberals are. They campaign from the left and then they govern from the right, the Liberals.
You got that right, Rob.
Yeah. I just think, look, at the end of the day, democracy matters. Our democracy matters. Preserving a level playing field so that everyday voices aren't drowned out is important, and that's why we're moving on it.
Okay,
well, listen, there wasn't a problem.
Go ahead.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead, Gilles. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there wasn't a problem in the last election for the Tories. The Tories did quite well with the system. They liked what was in place, and now they think it's going to be used against them. That's what this is all about. And Mr. Ford knows that they've got problems going into the next election. Their polling numbers are not what they should be. There's a lot of people. We heard them booed at a vigil the other day, which is quite regrettable because that's not something we want to see, right? But they know they're in trouble. So they're invoking the notwithstanding clause and saying, Constitution? What's that? No, don't worry about it. We close your eyes. We don't have one.
Okay. Let me ask my two right-wing friends, Gilles and John. Here. Would you be okay though? Let's say, for example, I use this example this morning. Evangelical churches, and it's just an example. Okay, the congregations can be very politically active. What if they formed a political action committee to spend millions of dollars on a pro-life campaign? Would you be okay with that? Or what if, say, the Weston family formed a political action committee and spent millions of dollars to say, don't vote for anybody who's going to try and raise the minimum wage? What would you think about this? We don't want this kind of free-for-all, right?
Well, it's happened before.
But we don't want to. Well, it's happened before, but we don't want it to happen again, though.
If the government was serious,
but we don't want it to happen again, right?
Who's next?
You, Gilles. Go ahead,
okay.
Very quickly.
Very quickly, if the government wanted to deal with those issues, we suggested it when they brought the last legislation in place, which we thought was flawed. Refer it to a committee or refer it to a commission and have them take a look at what is fair when it comes to how we run our elections. We had essentially provincially paid elections before with the subsidy program, which dealt with a lot of these issues. The government got rid of it, tripled the amount of money they can get. Why? Because it helped Doug Ford and the Conservatives.
Okay, I want a quick comment from John. Quick comment from John on that.
Yeah, look, I think that there were reasonable limits on what third parties can spend. And there is a right to freedom of expression. And if I don't like somebody's opinion or position, that doesn't mean I can further restrict their ability to communicate that. I think that's a really important thing. And it's kind of surprising that the Conservatives are going after freedom of expression because they were so sort of hot on that issue on university campuses.
All right. Okay.
And so it's kind of I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
This has been a weird one for me. Look, we're right out of time. It's great to talk to all three of you, as always, especially you, David. Solidarity, brother. Okay?
Here we go. Are you with the right winger again?
All right, we got to run.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.